Hello, everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. I am super excited to be with you today. Before we get going, this is your reminder to make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you love what we're doing, you can now support this podcast by clicking the support us link and help me keep bringing you great information and inspiration on witchcraft and magic and all kinds of good stuff. And thank you to everyone who is already supporting. Thank you to everybody who is following, subscribed. You have no idea how much I appreciate you. I personally read all of your comments, and I'm just so grateful that you're here with us. So don't forget, you can also learn more about me and kitchen witchcraft and food magic by finding me at cucinaaurora.com and following me at Cucina Aurora on all social media. And today, I am chatting with one of my friends who I'm so happy to have back here. Today, it is Marshall, Witch of the Southern Light. Witch of Southern Light. I know I put the in there, Marshall. I'm sorry.
It's
Marshall,
okay.
Witch of Southern Light. Marshall is a folkloric and traditional witch in Texas, as well as the co host of Southern Bramble, a podcast of crooked ways. He's the author of Cunning Words, a grimoire of tales and magic, a narrative based book teaching witchcraft and spirit work, and now published his second book, The Red Mother, which is volume 2 in the Cunning Words collection. Marshall, I'm so happy to have you back. Oh my God.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be back. I always love listening to your show, and I remember we had such a
Oh,
good time last time. This is, I think, as of recording right now, this is the first time I am diving into a whole episode about the new book. I'm so excited.
it's really, really cool. So you had reached out to me and you're like, so listen, I'm doing this second book. Can I come on the show and talk about it? And I was like, hell yes, you can, because it's really exciting. First of all, I want to just say this. I don't often have repeat guests on this show.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I also don't, if I do have repeat guests, they're usually not here in the same year because most people don't put out that much great work in less than a year. So here you are doing all of this. I mean, what? It's like 8 months, and you're like, bing, bang, boom. You're like writing another book, publishing it yourself, right?
I am publishing myself. I
Yes.
did publish the first one last year, but
Yeah.
it was my first.
Yes.
It was my first opportunity. It was my first self-published book. It's my first
Yeah.
book I've ever written, and I was really kind of learning the ropes along the way. So I did a
Mm-hmm.
lot of after advertising
Mm-hmm.
versus before
Yeah.
advertising.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm learning from my experiences. I made so many new friends like you
Yeah.
who really showed me such amazing support with this process. Self-publishing is a huge undertaking. It's all on me. I'm my
Yeah.
own advertiser, my own PR person, my own marketing. I'm my own
Yeah.
illustrator. I make my own covers. I have to source out my own editing. I I I am everything when it comes to this. I really see this as my baby. So when the community has support for me, like you and your show, it means the world because it helps me get my vision, my art out into the world.
I think that's so important. And there's a lot of people that listen to this, that listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff that are like, how do I be a professional witch? How do I take my spiritual side, my spiritual craft, the things that I do, and go out into the world and make a living or reach people or share what I'm doing. And I think oftentimes, I'm going to get letters. People are going to write me emails. I think oftentimes people don't realize the amount of work,
Oh,
hard work, dedication, tenacity that it takes to do that. The parts that you don't like, the marketing. It's hard to get out there and be like, "Hey, please buy my book. I'm awesome. Please," like without feeling icky about it.
hmm.
And that there are these sort of ingrained feelings in us that maybe I should be doing this for free, or maybe I'm not good enough or worthy enough to ask for either attention or monetary compensation for the work I'm putting out into the world. And I think what you prove is you can do the hard work and still have that hard work be spiritual and creative, but you have to be able to do both.
Absolutely. It's such a, to be perfectly honest, like the idea of writing a book was always like oh, one day. Oh, off in
right?
the future. Like
Right?
I never truly had, I never believed that I had the ability to take enough time and
Mm,
have the mental and physical capacity to write it all out. But you know, it was so interesting because so much of what I have written in Cunning Words and in this has been drops over time. It's like literally dropping
mm,
drips of water into a bucket. And the thing is a year and a half later, that bucket's full. And it
right.
was tiny amounts of adding over such a long time. And listen, I am not a full-time writer. I'm a full-time hairstylist, and I do this in my free time, in my passion time. I like to think about my free time. I have 3 days off a week from my salon. I only work 4 days a week there. And that's so important to me because I need my passion time. And I've been able to put that together in here. And the way that I've done it has been very specific. Like
Yes.
I cannot sit at a computer and just write as if I'm writing a fantasy story. A huge portion of what I've written in Cunning Words and in The Red Mother has been my own magic giving life to it, have been things I've built over time, have been inspired experiences, have been revelations throughout practice and trance work and a lot of dedication on a daily basis uh, to build what these end up becoming. I think I'm not sure if I mentioned the last episode. When I write, I always do it on the elliptical. Um,
No, you
I
did
didn't. Okay. I
not.
do.
No.
I only write on the elliptical. I actually, I get gym class, I drive to the gym, I get on the elliptical, I put on a high incline, a high resistance. So it's not like super fast, but it is, a good steady resistance. I
Right.
put in Lindsay Sterling. If you're not sure if you
Oh,
ever list, I love
yes.
Lindsay
Love
Sterling.
Lindsay Sterling. Yes.
Electric violin. It is
Yes.
so full of music. It's
Transcendent.
very
Yes.
transcendent.
Yes.
I will put that on my ears and I will get in the notes app of my phone and the world will fall away.
Wow.
Like an hour will go by, the machine's powering down into like a cool down mode, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? I'm dripping in sweat. I have no idea it's even been an hour. I've been completely lost in this world of world building almost with the magic. And when I try to sit down on my couch and write on it, or when I try to go to the
Yeah.
computer, nothing happens. I find myself
Wow.
completely lost. It reminds me a lot. I think a lot of people will get this and understand this. Do you ever
Yeah.
get on a phone call and you start pacing around your house?
Yes.
You just start walking around mindlessly
Yes.
and aimlessly. It's a very flow state. You are
Hmm.
removing yourself from your current surroundings to the point where you just kind of start wandering aimlessly. You might not even know you're doing it at first.
Yeah.
That's what it was like when I started writing. I didn't know what was coming first. The first story I ever wrote in Cunning Words, I had no idea what was going to come of it. When I started The Red Mother, again, so many pieces. I wrote them completely out of order, having no idea how they were going to fit together in this puzzle
Wow.
piece. I guess it'd be a good idea now to do a little introduction for the Red Mother because I feel
Well,
like,
yeah, and also like
yeah,
I
please.
want people to understand, when we're talking about when I interview other authors and even myself, like as an author, which is so weird, right? Because like you said, like I don't think of myself
Truly.
that way. Like
Yeah,
like I'll be like, oh, I wrote this book. Does that make me a writer? I guess am I a writer? Is that,
right?
I would never, if somebody walked up to me and was like, what do you do? I would never say, I'm a writer. That would never be the thing. But I think that what's important is to explain to people who are listening, who maybe are meeting you for the first time,
Yeah.
the way you write is really different. You're doing narrative storytelling in magic.
Hmm.
And that is so different than here are four rituals that will help you with prosperity in your life. And here's the history of this deity based on the research that I did. So can you explain to people
Hmm.
what is narrative magic so they have a baseline for your work in general?
Absolutely. So, narrative magic is kind of working with the power of storytelling. Um, we have a long history of religions and spiritualities and mythos inspiring our gods, inspiring the way they have been anthropomorphized, inspiring what they represent as deities, as spirits, as motivations in stories. Um, the way in which we associate certain flowers because of the myths that are written about them with their magical properties. Most people may not realize that's already dipping into narrative magic. When
Mm,
you're working with Venus, the power of Venus for love, you're tapping into the power of narrative magic. She's the goddess of love. If
mhm.
it's planetary, it's the planetary spirit of love, friendship, beauty, art. We are already kind of working with this, but purposefully doing so takes it to another version of itself.
Mhm.
When I write stories, the way that they're written are meant to reveal acts of magic and sorcery and give you a glimpse of spirits that you may not be able to see, but as you read about them, they will show themselves to you in your mind, in your imagery, in your senses. They started showing up in so many places for me. I'm getting chills thinking about it right now
Yeah.
because I started noticing so many synchronicities with my own life as I was writing these stories and putting them together. And many of them were inspired by, I'm not sure if it's circular, like I wrote it and it was inspired by, or I
You were
wrote something and felt
inspired and
inspired and it happened.
yeah.
Um, but stories are around us everywhere. I know I've talked about magic and art before. I have this picture behind me. The might be able to see with the window. Let me see if I can give you a. Nope, that makes it
No, that
worse.
makes it worse.
Yeah, it does. There's a picture behind me, but it's it's a it's an image I call the lady who watches. I drew it when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
Now,
Really?
did not
You
this
drew
one
that when you were
specifically.
13?
Actually, I have. Okay, so I drew this one when I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's
So
the
if you're
actual
just
first
listening on
image.
audio, it's kind of amazing. The eyes are incredible. It's just the face of a woman and she's just staring right at me. Like she's just like,
She's
girl, she is
watching.
totally judging me.
So I drew that at like an art camp and it was a really cool experience. And my mom, she was, she loved her baby boy. She had it framed and she hung it in the house. And she kind of like slowly became this thing that I always noticed was always there watching us.
Wow.
And when I moved out, and subsequently later my parents divorced, they were cleaning everything up. I got this picture and because she was like, would you like it? I was like, absolutely. And I started
Yeah.
getting into drawing a lot more in Procreate. I ended up recreating it, and that's the one that I have on the wall behind me.
Wow.
And I was able to print out multiple versions of it, and I gifted it one back to my mom. I gifted one to my friend Emily, one to my friend Kevin. Um, and I continued to push this idea and understanding that this is the lady who watches. She watches it all. She watched me grow up. She watched me become the person I am. She watched our family. She watched our family together. She
Mm,
watched it apart. Now she watches me, and now she watches over my mom, and she watches over my friends, and she's become this spirit in my life. And whether we wanted to get into the idea of chaos magic and egregores, or we want to get into the idea of, is she a protectress? Is she someone who is um, what are her thoughts and motivations?
right.
That's just it. As it has coalesced, it has become this feeling, this energy that I have with her that is very close to me, my family, and friends.
Right.
She's the witness. She is the witness of everything that is going on, and she's a witness in our homes. And so I call her the lady who watches. She's become quite a spirit in my home and now in people
Wow.
who I love. So we are already surrounded by stories like that in our own families with personally created pieces of art, in office buildings that you've seen those that stupid painting on the wall that you hate every day when you walk by or that you love. I imagine if more people stop and look at these things, you will start to notice details. You'll start to notice characters. You might start noticing brush strokes. I find that art is already magical with the
Yeah.
intention and motivation and passion that went into it. It's a creation that didn't exist before it was made. And
Yeah.
I think that there's magic, there's motivation in magic, there's energy in magic there. And I think the stories they tell us, the stories we interpret, the stories that give us emotion or feeling, love, rage, hatred, I think that we have the power to use those in our craft.
Wow.
That's where narrative magic, and then also with storytelling and presenting the magic through the storytelling kind of comes to me.
That's pretty and I have so many questions now about this drawing of yours and the art that you create and all of that. But the first question is, and I don't know, maybe you've never been asked this, or maybe people have asked this lady who watches,
Yeah.
Is she you? Is she your soul? Is she your, is she part of you that you created?
Hmm.
Or was she inspired by spirit to be embodied in this way to watch over you? Or is she inspired by something external
Hmm.
that you said, no, I love this and I'm going to, you know, have this as sort of a talisman for, hanging in my home to connect with deity or spirit? Like,
Hmm.
is it any one of those things? All of those things,
I think
right?
this is what we were talking about before we started recording. It's not an
Right.
either or situation. It's a
Right.
both and. I think that this is okay. So let me give you just a little backstory on the spirit of this picture specifically. I want to say 12 or 13. It was the summer art camp. We were told, pick an image, any image, whatever you want to do. It has to be small. We draw a grid on it, and then on a large piece of a poster or a canvas, we do a large grid and we basically draw it grid by grid.
Right.
I have no idea where this picture came from,
Yeah.
but I came in with a picture it was literally like probably like 2 by 3. And it was a little one of a woman with a striking look on her face. I have no idea who she is. She had a nest of hair with flowers and very ornamental sorts of things in there. And there was just something about it that just said, me, draw me. And
Right.
I don't my brain was in a very like early witchy stage at this point in
Yeah.
time. So this is when I was just kind of discovering witchcraft and I drew it square by square all the way across. And in fact, if you look at the original again, you can see where some of those square marks kind of shift in their lining just because you could only draw each individual square at a time.
Amazing.
And when I recreated it, I didn't follow that, but it was the way that it came across on the page, square by square, as it came together. It felt like I was giving a part of myself to give it life,
Yeah.
and they were going to fulfill the other half as the one who watches.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
contract, and honestly, a huge portion of what magic is all some sort of spirit contract. Even when you're working with herbs, you're contracting with the spirit of that herb. If you're working with your land, you're contracting with the spirit of that land. It's always about a both and situation.
Correct. Right. Because you as a practitioner or the channeler
Hmm.
or the worker are asking the spirit, the art, the herbs, the whatever
Hmm.
to work with you, not for you. At least that's the way I look at it. Right.
Well, it's so fascinating. I completely agree. And this is one of the things that really shifted for me when of course, I've talked about this where everyone a lot of us started with the idea of our gateway entry with Wicca. It was very, your altar with your pentacle and then your four different elements and all of them
Yes.
working together. When I
Yes.
started focusing a little bit more into traditional witchcraft and folkloric witchcraft, a lot of that changed. The purpose of some of these things on my altar started to change. The incense that I would light isn't for air, it's an offering to the spirits I'm working with.
Right.
The cauldron isn't a place, for fire specifically or for water specifically. It's the place that I am birthing my spirit or magic within.
Right.
The candles that I'm lighting aren't for fire. I have a specific one in the center that is the light between the horns, the hood lamp, if you will. It's a horns going that way. With the candle in the center, it represents gnosis from the old ones. So that's where my altars completely change. And the purpose of many of these things have shifted into a very contractual nature. I'm offering you incense. I'm offering you these things. I may go and get a bouquet of flowers to offer, or fruit, or eggs, or honey.
Yes.
These are offerings. And at the same time, sometimes, and this is where it gets kind of funky, this is where it starts to overlay with each other. Those flowers have spirit too.
Yeah.
Those eggs have spirit. That honey has
Yeah.
spirit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you offer spirits to work with larger spirits, to work with deities, to work with bigger, grander things. That's where you get into the nature of like sacrifice that I think people don't quite understand when we talk about it. It's not always just bloodletting,
Absolutely.
but sometimes there's that too. In the Red Mother, there is there's multiple workings that involve pricking the finger with a sterile needle.
Yeah.
I do a little content warning in the beginning for that, just so people know. But
Yes,
like
for
there
sure.
are multiple levels here that we work with because as an animist, I am always aware everything has
Yes.
spirit.
Yes, and I think that's such an important point, in working with elements, working with deity, working with spirit. You
Hmm.
know, there was some, as growing up in a very religious Catholic traditional family like that,
Oh yeah.
you know, there was always this like, oh, ask God, ask God, ask God, right?
Hmm.
And I always thought it was really weird that you were doing things. It was always like, oh, well, hey, God, if you do this thing for me,
Mm.
I won't ever do this again, or I'll be good, or if you do this, or I'm going
Hmm.
to do that thing. But it was always quid pro quo. You do
Hmm.
this, I'll do that. You do this, I'll do that. And then into exploring witchcraft and going, well, the spirits and the deities and the fae, these entities are just like us. How would I feel if every time the only time anyone came to me was when they wanted something?
Right.
They only gave me something because they wanted something from me or they want a favor. That feels icky, right?
Hmm.
That feels really one-sided. And so in working with spirit or working with deity and saying, you know what? I'm just going to, like you said, you have this altar that these are your offerings. This is for you all the time.
Hmm.
Hey, Hecate, this is for you all the time. I'm always going to put flowers here for you, or I'm
Hmm.
always going to do this, or I'm going to, donate to the animal shelter because it's the right thing to do, but also for her,
Hmm.
right? Like not because I want something from her, in honor, in appreciation and gratitude for, not quid pro quo. And I think
Hmm.
that's something that, like you said, you talked about, sacrifice or giving or whatever. Like it's, I don't know. I don't think about it as sacrifice because just like in any relationship, I want to share things with you,
Hmm.
not it's a sacrifice that I have to give something up. I'm not giving
Right.
anything up. Okay. And granted, I've done some spells where I've had to like take a couple hairs out and be like, okay,
Sure.
I need to
Few
move
drops
this
of
along.
blood, a little
Yeah.
spit.
Right. I need to move this along. So I'm going to show you how much I need to move this along by this. Right. Cause this is some serious shit. Um, but the one time speaking of sacrifice, the one time I went to a friend and my father had just been diagnosed with cancer and she knew, she saw me from across the room and made a beeline for me and she goes, what happened? She's an old what was she, Santeria. She comes over and she goes, what happened? And I said, oh, my dad got diagnosed, he's sick, but it's just the beginning. And she goes, okay, you got to get a chicken. And I'm like, I am not killing a chicken. I was like, can I use like a Purdue? And she's like, no, it's got to be a live chicken. And I was
Oh,
like,
no rotisserie from the grocery store in the
right, no
bag.
rotisserie. No, no, no. She wanted me to go. She's like, you got to get a chicken. She goes, we got to cut his head off. We got to throw it in the ocean. And I was like, no, no, I'm not capable of that. She's like, well, you need to do a sacrifice, and that's the easiest one. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And she goes, okay, he has 18 months. And I was like, no, no, no. And she was right. And I didn't kill a chicken, and I lost my dad in under a year. So there is something to be said for that, but that's not me. So that's okay.
Right. Yes.
But it's totally fine. Um, but I don't know where I was going with that. I feel like I just had to tell you that.
No, no, I think
That's
people
what
really,
everybody thinks when they
yeah,
hear sacrifice.
yeah, people really, really shy away from the concept of sacrifice or blood magic or anything that
Correct.
sounds like it's something something only that would be done evil in the movies. And I want to say that's very
Correct.
fetishized. It's
Yes.
very, very fetishized. It's very Hollywood fetishized.
Yes.
Um, nobody is out there dragging blades across their hands. Ouch, that's going to take a long time to heal. That
Right?
is that is
No.
very, very ridiculous. Most of the time when these things are involved, I personally purchase diabetic finger pricks.
Mm-hmm.
I keep them in a box near my altar. I use them when I need to for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is a part, I mean, a portion, a good portion of the Red Mother does involve recognizing the magic of using your own blood to give life to something, and as a
Mm.
signatory to a contract taken out, if you will.
Oh, that is again, that is like you said, like what people think that
Hmm.
is and what the reality is, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is about giving life to something. This is
yeah.
about, and again, like even with that sort of magic, doing blood magic or sacrifice magic. Again, like I've done things where I've literally like just put my hands through my hair and go, "Oh,
Oh,
look, hair,
all the
okay."
time.
All the time. Oh, let's just give that to whatever um but it's almost always about bringing something forward, not about taking something away or never to harm, never to harm, you know? So I think that's incredibly important to just drive home that what you see in the movies is not. It's not at all.
It's a movie.
It's a movie, darling, please. So I'm gonna check our time. Okay, we still have a
Sure.
couple minutes. Okay. So getting into the Red Mother,
Yeah.
and I really kind of want to dive deep into the Red Mother, this book,
Hmm.
why, and what, right? So let's take a quick break. Let's hear from our sponsors, and then we'll come back and we're going to take a deep dive into the new book. Okay.
Perfect.
We're back with the amazing Marshall, Witch of Southern Light. I heart you so big. Um,
Thank you. I heart you
I
too.
I feel like I feel like you're the cool kids, and I shouldn't be at your table. Like I
No. Oh my gosh.
swear 100%. Also, I can't, you're so pretty. I used to have such a crush on you. Um,
Oh, thank you.
seriously. I remember we
I'm
put
blushing.
stop. I when we did the first episode and I sent your photo to my team making the graphics for the team. Everybody was like, "Who is this?" I'm like, "He's beautiful." I'm like, "I know, right?" It's the hair. It's because you're a hairdresser. You have that gorgeous, but also you're everything.
Thank you.
Everything. Everything. You are such a light. And I'm
You're
so
very
happy.
kind.
I'm so
I'm
happy.
very grateful for you saying that.
So let's get back into this and your amazing work because you are also an amazing witch, an amazing human being, and an incredible writer. So the new book is called The Red Mother, and it's the
Yes.
second volume
Hmm.
in this Cunning Words series. So, first and foremost, did you always know you wanted to create a second volume? And now that you volumized this, are you going to keep going? Do you see this as being like 6 books, a dozen books?
Well, as I said before, many of the things that I have written have been very they have revealed themselves to me over time.
Right.
So no, when I first started, I had no idea that I was be writing a second book as part of a collection.
Mhm.
To answer the second part of that question, yes, there is going to be a full collection. I'm not going to say just how many, but I mean, in my mind, there are four.
Okay.
So I guess
I
I
like
just did.
that.
I guess I did. In my mind, at this point in time, I have four. So I actually already have started putting together the next one, but I'm going to be super cagey about what that's going to be at this point in time.
Absolutely.
Of course, of course.
Absolutely.
Um, but yeah, so the Red Mother itself, it is a continuation of Cunning Words. It is, it's very contextual. So it's going to take one of the characters that it's introduced in Cunning Words, called the Red Mother, or in the story, the first story, Our Mother in Red. Um, it takes her character, her spirit, and it really dives deep and expands upon who she is, where she came from, what is her story,
Mm,
how did she become this red witch? How did she get where she was going when she popped up in these stories? It is going to take what you have read about her and add so much more color, texture, and context. Um, it's so fascinating because as I was writing, I didn't always realize. So in the first book, she pops up on someone named Mercurial's front porch. Um, in my mind, when I wrote it, I didn't know where she was coming from, and all I knew was that she pops up when she's meant to. As I was writing The Red Mother, I found a story ending up, I guess that sounds right, ending up with her getting caught in the rain and needing a place to stay. And it just so turns out, oh my gosh, of course she's walking up to Mercurial's doorstep. So that story ends with the beginning of the story of Open Roads, which introduces the character of Mercurial in the first one. So you're
Wow.
going to start noticing some connections of, oh, so that's how she ended up here. Oh, so that's where that came from.
Mhm.
And you're going to get so much more context because it's almost like a prequel as well as an alongside story nut line, if you will.
Right.
And it's going to end with her introduction, which I don't want to give too much more.
No, 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 no.
It's gonna just end with her introduction as she's introduced in the first book. So you're
So
going to get a lot more about her story.
can you read this book without the first one? Does it
You
stand by
know,
itself?
it could you read it on its own? You could. You're going to miss out on a lot though.
Hmm.
These stories are all connected and it is
Yep.
a part of a world building. It's kind of like, could you read The Hobbit without reading all Lord of the Rings? Sure, you could, but you're going to miss out on a lot of background and
Yeah.
context.
Yes,
Um, they are
absolutely.
they are meant to be read in order. So as you're reading The Red Mother, you're going to start noticing, oh, okay, so that's how she ended up here. Oh, okay, that's what that was.
Hmm.
So like you get to learn about her initiation. And here's the thing, you've actually already read a portion of her initiation in Cunning Words. You just
Wow.
didn't know it was her.
Oh, see, that's very, very cool. Now, can you tell us
Mhm.
what is her archetype?
So, okay, this is great. So her original inspiration, of course, I think I've talked about this before at some point, is from The Black Toad by Jim McGarry. Um, it was my first introduction to the concept and the terminology Old Mother Redcap.
Mm.
Old Mother Redcap was a term used for a cunning woman, an alewife, a wise woman, or a fortune teller, and a lot of mostly over in England and parts of Europe. It was kind of like this title given that was inspired by an original case of a woman who was literally a local charmer who was kind of feared by the community, but people went to her and she wore a little red cap. So
Hmm.
called Old Mother Redcap, and it just became a common name for that type of cunning woman across different areas of the UK. And I learned about this, and when I first was learning about this concept of Old Mother Redcap, and of course in the book, The Black Toad, it's a chapter that she uses as an organizational tool as a chapter to talk about charms, talismans, written magic, enchantments. And then, of course, there's a chapter of Old Mother Green Cap, which is about herbal magic and healing, and Old Mother Black Cap, which is about curses, bindings, and hexes. Um, but I'm focusing specifically on the concept of Mother Redcap. And when I first wrote Cunning Words and wrote about these characters, they just spoke to me in a way that was so much larger than what I was reading in Black Toad. And I wanted to build, and something spoke to me, and I wanted to give those stories. But I was so connected to Old Mother Redcap, and of course Belinda, our mother in red, when I wrote it, that I knew she's got more to tell me. There's
Yeah.
so much more there, and um, in fact, I'd love to share this.
Yes,
Cunning,
please.
Cunning Words opens, of course, with a sort of an epitaph or a an opening charm or enchantment, if you will, let you know about what's going on in it, to let you know that that book was magic. It's very similar with the Red Mother, but it's going to introduce you to her archetype, her spirit. So I'd love to read you how this one opens as well.
Oh my God, would you?
Absolutely. It comes, of course, so it comes with a beautiful piece of artwork opening in the first
And
place.
your artwork is so freaking beautiful.
Thank you.
I mean, really, if anyone is not familiar with you, like, and we'll put all your links up and everything, but just following you online and see some of your art, it's just really gorgeous. Like I
Thank
find
you.
myself like staring at it. You know what I mean? Like, well, you'll post something
It's
and I'm
meant
like,
to be enchanting. It's meant
yeah,
to draw you in. It's meant to make you feel weird and awestruck and uncomfortable and wanting
and
more.
witchy. I
Yeah.
feel like there's something in your artwork that kind of like feels very root chakra. I have to stare at this. I have to connect with this. Like you can't, if you're scrolling and that comes
Hmm.
up, you have to stop,
Yeah.
you know? Okay. Okay.
Well, thank you. I
You,
appreciate that.
you go.
Okay. Old Mother Redcap is a very cunning witch. She twists her red thread full of spells in each stitch. She weaves her magic through time and space. She finds those who need her in their most desperate place. She'll make you a charm or tie you a knot. Sometimes she'll trade you for what you have brought. She's clever and witty and altogether most queer. You'll hear her song when she's quite near. The Red Mother is kind to those most deserving, but to those who are not, she is most unnerving. She has lessons to teach and stories to tell, so gather round, dearies, and listen up well. The magic she shares in this scarlet collection is for the most cunning with deep introspection. So pay close attention, read between the lines. She'll teach you the craft, she'll show you the signs. So close your eyes tight and enter the gloam. Let the Red Witch take you into her tome.
I'm so enthralled. Like literally, are you going to put this on audio? Because I could listen to you read
I'm
all
working on it. I'm
day
working on the first
long.
one still, but that that that's the kind of feeling and opening I want you to understand you're getting into when
Yes.
you start this. This is a book that is going to take you into a very different place when it comes to magic. There are going to be some things that probably make you a little uncomfortable. They're probably going to push some boundaries. There, of course, are content warnings in the very beginning, and I go into a lot of my inspiration in the introduction. I think it's really important that more people read introductions because they kind of prepare
Yes.
you for what you need to understand before going into it.
Yes.
And the artwork, again, is full, like I said, of more imagery. You know, the first book had the Black Man in Black sigil. This, of course, now has the Mother in Red sigil.
Amazing.
And it's going to go a lot deeper into the preface that I just teased in the first book about the old ones, their purpose, who they are, what they represent, as well as, and this is actually one of my favorite parts. The stories, as you go through them, are going to teach you literal acts of magic and sometimes lessons you need to understand, whether that's how to adapt, to work them in a way that is conducive for you and your local environment. How
Important.
very important. Also, what happens when you make mistakes? What happens when you're not clear with your intentions?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
those are really important lessons. And I
yes.
think until we see examples of disastrous results, no matter how fantastical they may be, they set a methodology of just it's not about like, you know, fear mongering or whatnot as much as it is this is a lesson we should all heed. Many of us practitioners over the years
Yeah.
have learned from our mistakes.
Well, I mean, that's how we grow.
Ab-
We have to make mistakes, but oftentimes mistakes in our witchcraft can be very damaging
Mhm,
because we are not being clear about our intentions, because we're
mhm,
not being clear about the whys. We're just so focused on the need or the how and not the
mhm.
whys. And I think that's incredibly important. I want to go back a little bit because you're
Let's
talking
do
about,
that.
I want to talk about the old ones.
Let's do that. Oh, please.
Okay. Let's talk about the old ones. So, again, for people that maybe don't have these concepts yet
Mhm.
that they're looking to learn from you, can you just give us a synopsis of who are the old ones to you in this context of this work? And also, what are three like top three important things people need to know about the old ones?
So, a kind of a brief synopsis of what they are to me. The old ones has been like a very common term used amongst a lot of folk witches for possibly the witch's devil, the witch mother, the witch queen, the queen of Elfame, the devil in the woods, the old
Hmm.
the horned one. Um, it's very elusive, and the way that each of us has kind of written about how we interpret, how we experience, how we feel it, how we see it has been very, very fascinating as I've learned. So I put together in the preface of the first book an explanation of it, and it really kind of goes back to understanding how the beginning of time and space all came together, right? So for me, I have conceptualized the concept of four different figures, and we perceive them kind of only through two, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. This is where it gets kind of layered. Um, when it comes to understanding, let's start with the first one. The first one is the concept of absence. It's a void. We really can't comprehend it. Even when we close our eyes and are told to think of nothing, we're still thinking of blackness. That's still something. We really cannot comprehend the void, the absence, because there's always something. And
Huh.
our just the fact that we exist means we cannot understand not existing.
Huh.
So that's the first of the old ones that I have conceptualized. The second one is its counterpart, existence. And existence is all that is. It's everything. It's again something that we can't contextually experience because it's all around us all the time and we can't take it all into one. But then it dwindles down into something that we can. First comes absence, then existence, and then after that comes desire. Desire is creation, the want, the need for more, to create, to make, to move, to inspire, to destroy, to evolve. That's the push and the underlying motivation in pretty much everyone and everything that we feel.
Right.
It's intangible. We cannot touch it, but we can feel it. We can
Yes.
experience it that way. And then finally comes physicality. Physicality is this book. It's the crossroads. It's the light I can hold. It's the herbs that we work with. It's the skull of the antlers. It's the candle we light. That is the thing that we can really interact with and touch. The thing is the way that I had conceptualized this is physicality is the witch's devil or the horned one or the witch father. That's the spirit of the crossroads that we can walk to the crossroads and
Wow.
interact with. That's physicality. Um, when we go one step upward back to desire, to me, that's the witch mother or the witch queen. If you want to go deified with it, you can. You can say goddess, witch goddess, if you will. She is where, in my experience, that's the physicality, the witch father is the gateway to the magic, the gateway to the desire, the gateway to the act of creation. And so you have to go through the physical to get to the non-physical.
Yeah.
And those are the two spirits that we mostly work with, I think, that I mostly work with and that I explain apart in the Red Mother. If you'd like, I'm not sure, there is a poem in here that goes into the old ones.
Yeah.
I would love to read it. It's not in print, so I think it's okay. Oh, it's published. When this comes out, it'll be published, so it'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'd love
Yeah.
to read it.
Yes. Would
Um,
you? Would you
I
share that with
I
us?
would love to. It's one of those that came to me in a way that I just felt it was really strange. I was actually outside on my phone with my dogs pacing in the dog park when this came to me, and I just continued to pace until I finished it.
You're so amazing because most of us need to have stillness to
Hmm.
allow these sort of inspirations or these things to come to us creatively, whether it's, a spiritual download or whatever,
Hmm.
you know, and you need movement.
I do.
You need the physical kind of like allowing your body to do something else so that you're kind of expanding that. And I've known a bunch of people that need physical movement to allow their brains to open up.
Yeah.
Um, and there is some neuroscience around like the detachment of when your body is occupied, that there are certain parts of your brain, and I'm not a neuroscientist by any stretch of the imagination, but there are certain parts of your brain that open up because like I have some of my best ideas when I'm
Hmm.
driving
Yes.
or I'm in the shower because
Hmm.
I'm doing something and my body is just in the doing the thing, but my mind can wander a little bit.
Hmm.
So I always feel like I'm over here like gesturing to my right eye. I always feel like there's something that's just outside of my vision when I'm driving, and I'm like, oh, there's that thing. Let me kind of pay attention to that. So
Yeah.
it's
Well, no,
interesting to me that that's what you need.
absolutely. And I think one of the things that a lot of people ask, especially new practitioners, like how can I tell the difference between um maybe an inspiration or a muse or information the spirit is giving to me versus something that maybe I'm projecting. And a lot of the times, the more you're trying, the more you're probably projecting, the more it
Yes.
comes out of absolutely nowhere, the more
Yes.
I interpret it as I'm getting something and I'm getting information that is not coming directly from me.
Yes.
It is being placed here when I am not paying attention at all. And I
Yeah.
find that's what happens when I get into these repetitive motions, if you will.
Yeah. If you're sitting there, like, oh, okay, I'm going to meditate. I try to meditate like little tiny meditations. I try to meditate 5 to 10 minutes a couple times a week, just
Hmm.
getting, just quieting my mind down a little bit. And it's never those inspirations, those ideas, those big breakthroughs, they never happen in those moments.
Hmm.
They always happen when I am not asking for them. You
Exactly.
know? Not ever, not
I
ever.
know.
I'll be outside watering the lawn and I'll be like, oh, that's a great idea for that thing. Or, oh,
Hmm.
look at that inspiration. And the more I get more messages from Faye when I'm like weeding the garden. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, please, please, please read
Oh,
us a poem.
yes, yes. Okay, so this poem is called The Old Ones, and I want you to hear it as if you're kind of sitting around a campfire or
Oh,
at a hearth, and you're being read a poem too. And it tells a little
yes.
bit of a parable or story. So here we go.
Okay.
The Old Ones. By moonlight at the crossroads, the scarlet woman sought. The man in black had come to her, lessons of other he brought. He told her of the old ones, he told her of the void, the empty spirit of absence, time and space devoid. He told her of existence, of what is and what will be. From blackness sprung the universe to become all that we see. He told her of desire, the want, the yearn, the ineffable, of consciousness and gnosis, a spirit to seek through the liminal. We call her the witch mother, the weaver, the witch queen, the spinner of all fate, the spark of in between. She who cannot be seen or heard, who knit the stars in space. She is the magic, she is the wonder. She takes us into her embrace. That desire made real formed matter, the sky, the sea, and the earth. The physicality of our universe and the tangible gave life birth. I am that very spirit, said the man in black. I am the physical gatekeeper with whom the witch contracts. I am the great initiator, the guardian, the keyholder. I stand at the crossroads with gifts for the cunning beholder. Through me seek the old ones, for each carry what came before. Through me seek the witch queen, who is desire at her core. She who seeks to grow and change the creative force so divine. Through her seek out existence, the threads of the great design. And through existence do perceive what to us cannot truly be known, the first old one of the deep expanse, absence, the void of unknown. The red mother listened well. She heard the old one's call. The man in black continued, and she knew he was them all. I go by many names, they said. I've been a devil and a king. I've been a trickster and a savior, old as time and young as spring. I've been the spirit of the crossroads, the horned one of the wood, the goat and the stag. Through all time I have withstood. Our hands grant you ingress to the worlds of above and below. The gateway into the gloam we open to those who will know. They told her of the old ones, how from each the next became, the affable and ineffable, where the which king and queen do reign. To the mother and the thread weaver, to the devil of my land, hail the spirits of the deep from before all time began. By moonlight at the crossroads, the scarlet woman changed, altered by the man in black, forever rearranged.
I'm so enthralled.
Thank you.
I like just keep talking, just keep reading. Like I'm literally, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for
That
letting
was,
me.
oh my goodness. Oh my god. I'm just gonna say this.
Hmm.
You should be fucking proud of this.
Well,
Like
thank
real,
you.
really. It's just, and I'm sure I said this the last time we talked. What you do is so, so unique. It's so different. It's so outstanding. Like, it's outstanding, but it's also, you are standing out in the witchcraft community because the way you approach magic and your craft and sharing it with us is just unlike anything else. And I cannot thank you enough for just being your authentic self and putting this out into the world in your own personal way. You're not trying to be somebody else or do something that somebody else is doing. You're just like, this is what's in my head, this is what's in my heart, and I am going to put it out in the world, and I hope people resonate, and it does. And I can't thank you enough. It's just so creative, and the word is like the depth of your artistry in magic is just very unique, and you should be fucking proud of yourself. I'm
You're
just
making
saying.
me so teary. Thank you. You know,
That's just what you've evoked in me with what you do. You need to understand. It's
thank
amazing.
I really appreciate that. For me, I was always so inspired growing up by poetry and prose and stories that just absolutely chilled me to the bone. I always loved mythology because for one, damn, that was high stakes. Everything was so high stakes. You know
Right.
what? You fall in love with the wrong person, you get turned into a tree.
So
Like
dramatic.
so dramatic.
Yes.
And and so much of what I loved about witchcraft was the act of creation and inspiration. And when I started writing, I I felt like I wanted to create the thing that I was always looking for. And
Yes.
I mean, I love my how-to books. Don't get me wrong. There's so
Absolutely.
much use in 101 and 102 and 201 books and how-to books, but there was something about the way, and I want to use something I think a lot of us might be able to understand, the way that religious scripture inspires people to
Mm,
believe in something bigger than them. It was so important to me that people get lost in my
mm.
stories and my poetry. I want people to feel like they're being shown something that isn't a textbook, but instead I'm trying to put an earworm into your mind that
Yes.
makes you start picturing things that you never would have imagined before, that
Yeah.
makes you start having emotions around someone you've never met before reading this story. Like,
Hmm.
it's so important to me that magic carry that sense of emotion, that sense of awe inspiring, that sense of like a story that makes you cry, whether that's sadness or love or rage or hate. It's something that needs to really, really light a fire into you. And
Hmm.
I found that the stories did that so much more than this is how you cast the spell. And these are the ingredients.
I think you are really on to something there because human beings are, we learn through story, we learn through
Absolutely.
sharing, we learn, historically, culture and religion
Hmm.
and recipes are shared through storytelling, right? Yeah, this is how you make this thing, again through the lens of my own kitchen witchcraft, right? Oh yeah, well we make, this dish through by using this and this, but we do it because one time the ancestor grew this thing for that reason, and this is why, and this is how it
Hmm.
felt, and now we do it this way because of that. Not A plus B equals C. It's not
Hmm.
transactional. And I just think that the storytelling approach that you have hit your goals, my friend. It is enthralling, it is transcendent, it is, you get completely lost in your work and your writing, and it's just absolutely incredible, and I can't thank you enough for that. Really. And then when we think
Thank
about
you.
it, like, thank you. Like, the mythology,
Hmm.
right? Even Bible story, they're Bible stories that we're meant to interpret for
Yeah.
ourselves. Mythology stories, like the high stakes, like, oh, if you marry the wrong person, like you
Hmm.
said, but there's lessons within that. Even original fairy tales were about
Yes.
teaching.
There were
They
lessons.
were lessons put packaged in a way that people understood. When
Hmm.
we think about when I think about like stories, movies, books that I loved as a kid, there were moral lessons. There were how to act around people, what kind of person do you want to be
Mhm.
baked into the stories. And that's what you've done with witchcraft. You said, what kind of witch do you want to be?
Yeah.
How do you want to practice? Here are these stories, and you can learn from these characters instead of from, like you said, textbook. It's
And
fun.
we have stories like this in our daily lives that we don't think about as being this way. Like a really common one that most people kind of know is the three sisters when it comes to farming or gardening.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of using like corn, bean, and squash together, those are considered the three sisters because they work together when they grow. But if you
Mm-hmm.
mix, say, like uh, if you mix one of those with something else that might actually be invasive to it, it might suck away its power
Mm-hmm.
source, it might suck away all the water, its roots might get into it,
Mm-hmm.
it'll suffocate it out. Like I could literally imagine writing a whole story around the way you plant the three sisters in
Yep.
farming and the way that that's taught down through generations of farmers to understand like it started somewhere. Like these things
Right.
these stories start somewhere. And
Yeah.
while all of these stories are new, I do think that as breeders read them, they will feel as though they are again hearkening upon something that feels old, feels familiar, but it is entirely going to give you a new story on ideas surrounding those things, if you will.
It's pretty amazing. So the Red Mother,
Mhm.
so this episode is airing October 7th, and the Red Mother is available
Yes, October 1st.
October 1st. So
Yeah.
at the time of this airing, you can go where to buy this book?
You can go. I'm first publishing on Amazon. I'm a self-published author, so there should be three available versions: the ebook version, the paperback black and white version, and then the hardcover full color premium edition. Um, those should all three be available at different price points to let you know whatever your economic needs are.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be available, like I said, October 1st. And then probably a month after that, it will be available at um, barnesandnoble.com, the black and white version, as well as a lot of metaphysical stores who want to carry it. You can order it from Ingram Spark at that point, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make an announcement closer to the
Yep.
date that I know that it's up and available. Ingram Spark is so close.
So good.
Or,
Yeah,
and they're so slow at what they do, but they get it out there. So
they do.
that's great for me.
Yeah.
Um, that's when it'll be available.
And where do we follow you and how do we find you online? And
Yes.
yeah.
Please follow me. I am on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads at Witch of Southern Light. All one word, exactly as it sounds like it's spelled. Uh, on the link tree of all of my bios, you will see a full list of all of my social media, as well as lots and lots of free resources. If you want to learn a lot, if you don't know like what correspondences go with things about magical days of the week, about crystals, about working with a lot of different herbal mixes and tonics and making extractions, there's lots of free links in there for you. I
Mm-hmm.
actually made it like a little icon on my phone so I can just tap into it whenever I need a link to the resource. Feel free to do that too, y'all.
Marshall, you're just so fantastic. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm really thrilled that you are continuing this journey with your storytelling and your witchcraft because we all benefit. We're all better for you and the work that you're doing. That's true. Really true.
Thank you.
Okay, final question.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you've been preparing this since our last time because I'm going to ask this every time. If you could have me as a kitchen witch cook you one magical meal, what would it be and why?
You know, I think I would love a really good crispy apple pie.
Ooh.
like with thinly sliced apples, like really cooked so they're soft and cinnamony and sweet. I love like really juicy Honey Crisps middle of summer, especially near the end of summer. Like it's a great harvesting season time period. By the time
Mhm.
this comes out in October, it'll super be harvesting season.
Absolutely. And,
But
apples are
yeah,
goddess food.
yes, and they're truly magical because, of course, when you
Yes,
cut them in half horizontally across, they have the pentacle inside.
that is correct. And their energy is goddess related, abundance
Hmm.
related, and for blessing.
Yes.
So really it's all about like, blessing your abundance and bringing that energy in. It's really interesting that you're writing about the red mother
Hmm.
and this sort of like archetypal female energy, and the food you chose was apple pie. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
really, really interesting and speaks to kind of magically exactly what you're doing right now. So that's so cool. So I'm going to make a note that if ever you come to visit, and I make a kick-ass apple pie. I'm just going to tell you.
I believe you do. A la
I
mode?
may, well, yeah, I mean, I would definitely serve it to you with ice cream for sure.
Thank you.
For sure. And I do like a cinnamon crumble top. So it's like a dome
Oh,
with a cinnamon crumble top
oh my
and the
gosh.
thin
Yes.
sliced apples. And I actually marinate them overnight with not just sugar, but I do sugar, honey, and cinnamon. So you get this sort of like honey, like I use
Ooh.
the local organic fall honey, like it's autumn honey, not spring honey. So yeah, no,
Yes.
it's
So it's
yes.
rich and full
Yeah,
harvested.
yeah, yeah, super. I'm making a note that if you ever come to visit, I'm making you an apple pie.
Absolutely. I'll take you up on that.
Please. Oh my God, I would love it if you came to visit. If you're ever coming up to Salem, Massachusetts, I'm like 45 minutes from there, so you need to come. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm not sure if I can this time. I will be at Salem for Salem Witch Fest in August. I'm doing a book signing up there.
Son of a bitch, I'm away.
Oh
That's
no.
August 17, 18, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my first weekend at the big event in New York. So I'm
Ugh,
which is why I'm not going to be there.
of
So,
course.
son of a anyway, anyway, thank you so much for being here. Everyone go and follow Witch of Southern Light on all socials. Marshall, you are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here. And until next time everyone, I wish you so many blessings and so much gratitude.